Hi guys, I'm Jagrati and today I'm bringing to this show where I will be telling you about various stories from the cinema world. Now, these stories can maybe impact you in different ways. It is something that could be relatable for you. Maybe it won't be relatable for you, but it could be something that makes you think. And, it's different kind of stories, but it's definitely going to be super interesting for you. So today I've got a story and it's about Anna Karina and Jean Godard. Now, I don't know if you know about these people or you've even heard about these people, but they are from the French New Age cinema revolution, which began in the late 1950s to mid 1960s. So let me tell you a little bit about what was happening in France at that point. Movies up till then were solely focused on creating these narratives that are going to bring the entire mainstream public together, and they will all invest in watching the movie. So it was focused on the public. And the new age cinema that was trying to come about, with Jean Godard was a huge advocate of. Um, these movies were more focused on art, the human experience, something that's a little more personal. And what we now call art house cinema, which is a properly defined industry right now, at that point, it was this revolution that was bringing it about. And in India, this came about in the 1980s. So for movies like Saranj, Par, these are the kind of movies that were being made that were bringing in that change in India. But for French cinema, it came a little bit early. It came about in the late 1950s. So yeah, and in India, it came in the 1980s. Anyway, so moving forward, I'm going to first start telling you about Anna Karina. She is the heroine of the story. And we are all gonna go ahead with keeping this in mind, that this is about her, because I was so invested in her story. As soon as I got to know a little bit about her, I wanted to know everything about her. And I'm pretty sure if you follow those pages on Instagram which tell you about like these small quotes from ancient movies, I've seen Anna Karina. I knew of her. I remember because she has this style, she has this charm, she has this innocence on her face that is hard to forget. It's like it's something that you feel is familiar. Even if you watch it if you see her for the first time, you'll feel that this. It's familiar to you. So she had that. It was a different kind of magnetism that is unique just to her. Okay, so I'm going to tell you about a story. She was from Denmark. She was born in Denmark. She was born to this woman who was a dress shop owner. But before she was born, her father already abandoned the family. So she did not really have a father. And the first 3 years of her life, she stayed with her grandparents, her maternal side grandparents. And the next 3 years, she was in foster care. Now, finally, it was time for her to move back with the family, with her mother. But her mother had already married another man who turned out to be abusive. So it was not a good situation for her at all. And she had already seen a lot of, moving around in her early life. And now she has this stepfather who's abusive. So she was somebody who was known to have a lot of anxious energy, and she used to try to run away from her home a lot. Like, she was like those typical rebellious teenage daughters, that people love to talk about, but nobody knows what they're going through. I mean, I was a little bit like that also. So she was just like, she wanted to run away. She felt that she needed to have an outlet, a creative outlet. So she started doing a lot of, in Denmark itself, when she was 14 years old, she started doing a lot of these projects. She started doing modeling. She started looking for ways to express herself creatively. She did this movie when she was 14 years old, which actually won her an award. The short film won an award at the Cannes Film Festival, which was, I think, a huge achievement for somebody who was 14 years old. And, after that, there was a fight that happened between her mom and her. And she ran away from her home. And she was like, no, I can't take this anymore. This is too chaotic for me. And I have already made a name. I've already proven to myself that I can do something in this field because of the short film that won so many awards. So she was like, I'm out of here. I'm leaving. She had 10,000 francs with her and she came to Paris. She had no idea about Paris. She was completely new there. She did not know anybody over there. And one day she was sitting in this cafe. She was sitting there and she was just, wondering about what to do, where to go in her life. And there was this lady who walked up to her and she was like, you're very pretty. And I think you'd make a really good model. And at that point, Anna Karina was sort of skeptical also, because she had seen the darker side of life by then, because she was very hopeful when she came to Paris, but there were times when she did not even have enough money to eat, and she was like, oh my God, I have to be really cautious about the moves I make now. But she still did it because she said the woman seemed really nice and she had a really pleasant smile. And she went with her gut and she decided to do it. And that was perhaps one of the best decisions she had taken for herself, because she became a really good model after that. She started doing a lot of projects. She also met Coco Chanel, who saw her in this Elle magazine, and Coco Chanel was actually the person who helped her come up with her artist name, which is Anna Karina. She wasn't born with that name, just like, Katrina Kaif is not born with that name. That's her artist name. Similarly, Anna Karina got this name through Coco Chanel. Anyway, so she started doing all of these projects, and she was once doing this soap advertisement, and in that advertisement, she was basically sitting in a bathtub, and she was just like those typical ads. I'm like, it's not even, I don't even have to explain it. Those typical ads where a girl sitting like rubbing a soap and like just having a gala time and just living it up, just like the perfect, delicate darling that she is. So it was an ad like that, and she was looking great. Obviously, she was looking stunning. I think out of all the ads that I've seen, I saw that ad. It's shot in like, I don't know, 1950s, but she was just stunning, and it was a black and white ad, and like, oh, she was so gorgeous. Anyway, so now a very important thing happens in her life. Now I'm going to tell you about Jean Godard and how he came into her life in that moment because of that ad. A little backstory about him. Jean Godard was a film critic, and he was born in 1930, and he spent most of his life in Switzerland, but then he came to Paris because he had this affinity to watch movies. He was obsessed with watching movies, but then there was a point when he was like, I don't want to watch movies anymore. I want to write movies of my own. And he became a staunch film critic, and people used to say that the stuff that he used to write was so hard to understand most of the times because it was very chaotic. His movie reviews used to be all over the place, and it was just a different and a very unique and unusual mind that he had, and people could see that. And ultimately, he was making this movie called Breathless, and that was going to be his movie, and he was casting for it. And when he saw Anna Karina, so basically he saw Anna Karina in that ad for the soap. He saw her, and he was like, I want to cast you for a role. And Anna Karina was like, tell me more about the role. So it was like a short role, but she had to undress in that part. And she was like, I'm not okay with that. I cannot do it, because if that's the case, then I want to do it, but I can't because I'm not okay with being nude. And he was like, but you were nude in that. What are you talking about? You were nude in that bathtub scene. And she was like, I wasn't. I was actually wearing clothes underneath, but you you didn't imagine that to be. I'm just a very shy person. And that was it. Now, a year later, they meet again. So she gets a telegram from Godard's office because Godard is now making another movie. And it's going to be a political film about the Algerian war. And this time, he wanted to cast her as the main lead. She goes, obviously, to meet him, and they have a chat, and she's obviously willing to do it. And then they sign a contract, and then it's done. They're doing the movie. Now, the movie gets shot in Geneva, and it was 3 months of shooting. And throughout the entire shooting scene, the shooting time, they're both just staring at each other. They're both stealing glances at each other. And even the way the movie is shot, because he used to direct the camera and everything, the way he's looking, he's showing Anna Karina, it just shows that he's falling in love with her. It's like in the movie when they confess, like whatever the plot may, like when the lovers confess between them, it's like everyone's expecting that to happen because everyone's falling in love with her because the way Godard had directed her. Everybody could see that he is falling in love with her, the way he's, just catching her antics and her quirks and everything. So anyway, so that happened. They were looking at each other a lot and they didn't know what's happening. There was no conversation happening between the two of them. So it's not something that they could put a finger on, but there was definitely something happening. So now the movie is shot. And now they're having a dinner, which is like a success dinner, a final party dinner. And over there on the table, he passes her a chit. They're all sitting, and mind you, Anna Karina's boyfriend is also sitting on that chair. And he passes her a chit, and in the chit it's written that I love you. and I want to see you at 12 at this cafe in Geneva. And the boyfriend just snatches the chit and he's like, what is this? And Anna Karina is like, she's willing, she wants to go, because the thing is that she knows that something is happening between them and she just cannot not explore that. She just cannot not give it a shot. So she leaves her boyfriend, she dumps her boyfriend, and she goes to the cafe where Godard is sitting, and Godard is sitting there with this newspaper in front of him, and like she just goes up to him and she's like, she's just standing there for like 2 minutes, and it seemed like an hour had passed by while she was just standing in front of him. And then he removes the newspaper and he's like, come, let's go. And that's when we know that the love story between Anna Karina and Godard has begun. So now the love story between Godard and Anna Karina has begun, and now they start living together, start spending a lot of time together, and now they're working together on this movie called A Woman is a Woman with Anna as a lead. And the movie is supposed to revolve around Anna. Anna is this really beautiful, magical girl in that, and she's just the embodiment of feminine essence in that movie. And it's going really well, but as people have reported, and as a lot of people have said in their interviews, that they had a very tumultuous relationship and they started like tearing each other down a lot, and there were times when they had a lot of ego clashes, and there were times when they were just yelling at each other, and then another time then they're like all over each other. So it's like just extreme. Like the behavior between the two of them is just so hard to gauge about is it a good relationship? Is it something that they should not be in? Nobody knew. But one thing everybody knew is that there's a lot of passion happening between the two of them. Godard even changed the script of the movie, The Woman is a Woman, and he put some undertones of the relationship in the movie, like they used to fight about certain things, and he put all of that in the movie, and he made the script of the movie a little different than what he originally thought as the relationship progressed. Well, Godard is known as somebody who was very unpredictable, very impulsive, and he would always change things last minute. Sometimes if he's not in a good mood, he'd be like, everything is prepared. He'd be like, no, we're not shooting. And he also treated Anna not really well. Anna did not know anything that's going to happen until the last point. She would get the script just when everybody else is getting the script. And she's reported in interviews that she felt lesser than other people that was shooting over there, like on the set. She felt lesser than them, especially because of how Godard would treat her in front of everybody. So it wasn't a really good situation, but then they did finish it. And post the film, Anna got pregnant and they decided to get married. So they got married in 1961, and the film came out around the same time. So they started living a normal life. They had a good friend circle. It was a good life. These people knew about their love. People knew that they are these two people. This is an artist, this is a muse. They're deeply in love with each other, and all's well. Their social life is good. They used to hang out with all of these artists over there from the same industry and who wanted the same thing. So it was just a very good situation until what had started happening was that Godard used to just leave her in the apartment. He used to be like, I'm going to go get cigarettes. And he used to leave, and he used to not come back for 3 weeks, right? And there were times when, and he did that a lot of times. And she never knew if he's speaking the truth, if he's coming back. And he could just lie to her, and he could just not show up for like 3-4 weeks. And she was just barely 21. She wasn't even 21. And Godard was like 10 years elder to her. And she always felt that he's a little bit strange. He doesn't really talk to her. He runs away, especially when she needs him the most. And there were just times which were very tumultuous for her, drove her crazy. And, there were times when she thought that maybe he had an accident. Maybe he went away with some other girl. And at those points, like, if you're not sitting next to your phone the entire time, there's no way to communicate with the person. Especially what if a person is like left the country, or there's no way to talk to them. And you can't even go down. You can't even go out even for a little bit, because what if the person called in that exact moment when you've left the house? Like, what if? Right? So all of these things I can only imagine in today's times when we're so obsessed with social media and remain in constant touch with other people. I can't imagine how something like that could have affected her. at a point like that, you know. And women need to feel that sense of protection. Women need to feel that we are provided for, or we have that safety, security, and stability for us to be women, you know. Otherwise, we will just go crazy. We will lose our natural gifts of, like, you know, creativity, or how it's just a very difficult situation. And for someone who's like so young, and I don't know how she did it, but I'm pretty sure it was a really difficult situation for her. Anyway, once Godard came back home and he saw Anna lying down in a very bad situation. She had blood coming out. It was a medical emergency. And then he was like, oh my God, like, we have to go. I'm going to take you. We're going to move somewhere else and we're going to start a life there. On their way to South France, where they wanted to go, he stops. He's like, no, we cannot go. There's too much work to be done. We cannot go. We have to go back. And then they came back. So basically, I don't know, he was this person who's so unpredictable, who's so unsure, who's so impulsive, unpredictable. We don't know what's going on in his mind. And I'm pretty sure Anna was getting lost in this uncertainty, in this behavior of absolute carelessness for other people. Because sometimes what happens is when you're selfish, or when you are absorbed with your own ego, you don't care about how you're affecting the other person. Like, maybe you're so insecure you feel that you don't matter, but you are still, people who love you are also going to face the consequences of it, and that just never occurs to them, right? It's just something that just doesn't cross their mind. So I think that could be something that was happening to Godard, because he loved her, right? They had a child together. She was his wife. But that's how you can end up treating somebody you love. There has to be so many blind spots in that situation. And Anna is also somebody who was coming from a very dark childhood, and she was in foster care. She had an abusive dad. Mom sent her away when she was born. So, like, she didn't know what to expect either, because she did not have an example of somebody who showed to her what she deserved. And it was like a typical bad boy and a good girl situation, if you ask me. Anyway, so they came back, and there was this movie that they did, Woman is a Woman. It won a lot of awards at the Berlin Film Festival. And Anna Karina in 1962 became this huge actress, sought after. Everybody wanted to work with her. But the problem was that the movie, of course, it did really well and got a lot of critical acclaim. And it was a very good movie, but it did not do really well at the box office. So they did not earn enough money. And that, again, sent Godard in another trip, where he was like, oh my God, like, questioning himself all over again. And when that happens, he destructs everything, right? So it was hard for Anna Karina, and she decided to not deal with any of that, and she took up another movie. Although Godard wasn't happy with it. He wasn't happy that she's doing a movie with another director, with a completely different cast, completely different world. He wasn't happy with it, but I think Anna Karina needed it. She needed it at that point to do something that is going to maybe distract her. And of course, she deserved it. She deserved the reviews that she was getting, the pedestal she was being put on by everybody. And she had to, and I'm so happy that she did that. So anyway, so she did this movie. And so she was obviously in a position where she needed some kind of emotional support, right? She'd been through a lot. Godard, the relationship was very tumultuous. It was very hot and cold. And she ended up falling in love with a co-star. And she wanted to marry him. And I'm pretty sure that relationship was giving to her something that she desperately was in need of at that point. And it was something that like a wound that was created by that relationship with Godard was sort of being taken care of in that relationship. So she wanted to marry him, and then she came back to Godard and she told him that, listen, this is what's happening. I want to marry this person. And Godard was a nightmare to deal with at that point, because he came back home and he trashed the entire house. He broke everything, right? And that definitely traumatized Anna Karina. And that evening, it was said that she took sleeping pills and she passed out. And Godard, when he found out he could not take it, he was like, oh my God, again, his escapism was kicking in really hard. And he was like, oh my God, like, I can't deal with this. And he gave her away to friends to take care of. And he left somewhere else for his own peace of mind. I don't know wherever he used to go, right? Every time when he used to leave her. And then it was said that they reconciled after that, and then they created this movie called My Life to Live, which was a very emotionally deep movie, and as opposed to what Anna Karina was used to doing. Like, she was used to being this really girly girl, very youthful, very, dancing here and there, very sparkly. But this movie showed her in a very dark light, where she was seen in a very melancholic zone most of the movie. She cried a lot. In a lot of scenes, she's seen crying. And it's a story about a girl who's going through some major life experiences, right? Which sort of makes a lot of sense considering the narrative her life has had till that point. The movie did really well, though. The movie did really well, and Godard was really happy about that. And it was in the top 4 movies of France in that year. So that was good for them. That worked out fine. Post that, they went on to do 3 more movies together, and those all movies turned out to be really, really well. And it was a great way to establish the new age cinema in France, and that was all working out really well. So it was a success because of Anna Karina and Jean Godard and how they worked together and what they brought out of each other. So the movies did really well. And then they got divorced in 1967. We don't know why they got divorced, but we do know a lot of other things that were happening in the relationship which could have been a factor for them to get divorced. Maybe Godard was not happy with how she would not listen to him at times, right? She did go on and do another movie when he did not want her to. She fell in love with somebody else. We never know. Or maybe it was his escapism kicking in. Maybe it was his avoidant nature kicking in. But what happened was they called it quits in 1967 and they decided to go their separate ways. Now, Godard married somebody else in that exact same year. He got married to Anna in 1961. They got divorced in 1967. He married another person called Annie in 1967 itself, and she's also a German actress, and same vibe and similar vibes. And she's also an actress. She's also into new age cinema. She's also into art house cinema. And then he was with her till late 1980s, I think. And Anna Karina did not get married right off the bat. She went on to do a lot of other films. She went on to do really well. She started singing a lot. She created this movie in which she's singing a lot of songs. And then she also started her own music company in 1970s, early 1970s, which did extremely well. She went on to write books. She wrote around 3 books. And she married 3 times after Godard, and the last person that she married was in 1982, and she was with that person till 2019, which is when she passed away. And she went on to flourish a lot in her life, and she used all her creativity, and she was sort of unstoppable. I think she had that spirit in her, and she always had this innocence about her, where she, there's some people who are innocent, so like they are like sponges, right? So like life happens to them, but it also leaves. So something like that. So I think her spirit, her childlike spirit, was probably a huge reason of her getting through everything. She was not hard from inside. Whereas we know that Godard was somebody who had hardened a little bit. We don't know if it's because of his ego, if he had certain experiences in his life that created who he was. But he, on the other hand, went on to do not a lot of work after the divorce. He sort of went MIA, which is missing in action, and he did not want to talk to anybody. He did not talk to the same friends that he was friends with when they were together. Anna Karina and him were together. He was just missing in action. And ultimately, he did a movie in the 1980s, and then he did another movie in 2017. He passed away in 2022, but what remains and what is to note is that he did not want to see Anna Karina after the divorce, and he maintained that till he died. And there's an interview of Anna Karina in 2016 where people asked her what's happening with that, and she was like, it was a great relationship and it was like a gift and it gave me a lot, but I don't know how he is or how he has been, because he refuses to be in touch with anybody and nobody really knows how he is, and she wishes him well. And I'm sure she would, because she went on to do really well for herself, and she was always very full of love and full of excitement, and just who she is. It was always there in her. Like even in the interview in 2016, when I saw that interview, she had that same charm, that same innocence, that same optimism on her face that I've seen her in her interviews from back in 2000, in 1950s and early 1960s. So that was the story of Anna Karina and Godard. And I mean, right now, if we think about it, sounds like a typical anxious person and avoidant person's relationship, right? Because it's like hot and cold, and it's like super toxic, and it's like a fatal attraction. It's something that is causing you to do so well in life, create the best kind of art, which is going to have you remembered for centuries to come. Like you're immortalized because of the art you created, which was probably the result of the relationship that you had, because Anna was a muse and he was the artist, and that's something that Godard had maintained, that she is my muse and she is the reason I've created all of this work. But at the same time, there were times when he used to run away. He went into he would just suffer, and she had to take sleeping pills, and she was a mess most of the time. She was on the verge of going crazy. So it's something to think about, right? Is it worth it? What are the pros and cons of something like this? Is creating great art worth it? And well, luckily for Anna, apparently she did really well. But one of them, Godard, was not. It was like a downward spiral for him after the divorce. So let me know in the comment section what you thought of this, and if you've had any experience or somebody you know has an experience with this, and what are your views about this. This is Jagriti from Famous TV signing off.